Well, it's time now for our daily Wall Street Week conversation, and today we're focusing on the turmoil in the Middle East. On Saturday, Iran seized an Israel-linked container ship near the Strait of Hormuz. It's the latest in a series of attacks between the two countries. And here with more insight into how this impacts global supply chains is Brandon Daniels, Exiger CEO, along with Wall Street Week's David Weston. David, an important conversation after what we saw this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of drama over the weekend, which did affect shipping. So, Brandon, thanks so much for being with us. What did you see? What's the reaction so far in the markets of what we saw over the weekend?
So there are two things. The first thing is that the market is responding to the bearish oil expectations, right? So there's been a sentiment that there's going to be a depression in oil demand this year, and so that's eased the supply shock that was anticipated, and that's also eased the sort of this geopolitical tension impact. And so that's one of the major market impacts. But this also is going to start to impact the markets in multiple jurisdictions and in multiple industries. So you still have, major segments of the market that are shipping through the Suez Canal and through areas in that sort of Middle East region. You have Jebel Ali and Jeddah and a lot of major ports in that region. And the major countries that are still shipping through there are in Asia, and in particular, India. And so you're going to see shipping impacts and cost and inflation impacts on many of the goods that are shipping through India, in particular, rare earth materials, critical minerals that are used in global technology products. And then you're also going to see actually a supply chain impact on oil and gas industries, because a lot of methanol actually ships through those ports. And so you're going to see a global impact, but it's going to be really felt in Asia right now, because those are the places that are still dependent on this major thoroughfare, this major shipping route.
Well, Brandon, you touched on what I've been wondering about, which is where we should be looking for the ripple effects here, what industries we should be keeping an eye on. It sounds like oil, definitely, but also rare minerals and things along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. So oil and gas during any Middle East conflict obviously sees an oil price spike. And so depending on the Israeli response and depending on the extent of this conflict, which, a lot of our customers that are in the federal government are saying that they're anticipating, maybe targeted strikes, maybe something measured, just depending on the diplomatic negotiations over the next 48 hours. But a Gulf War like engagement here, kinetic warfare, it could lead to oil prices doubling. And considering that we're moving towards $100 a barrel right now, that could impact our global inflation rates significantly, which leads the Fed into a very difficult position in terms of rate cuts, right? We might actually not see rate cuts for months and months and months if this conflict starts to escalate, and maybe not at all in 2024 if this escalates significantly. But you're also going to see some of the technology and electronics areas start to get impacted, even some of the areas like semiconductors, which is an area of high demand right now because of the boom in AI. And usually in a situation like this, where you have a major port shutdown, you see anywhere between 5 to 10% reduction in output of raw materials, because this is a major shipping lane between Asia and the United States, or Asia and Europe, where a lot of the semiconductor manufacturing or finishing of those goods occurs. The other area that you're going to see another impact is the same area that we saw when the Houthi rebels were attacking ships, is the automotive space, especially in Europe and especially EVs. You're going to see potentially 1 to 2 month delays as people continue to route around this major canal, like the Suez Canal, or around these major ports. And so those are going to have downstream impacts. One of the interesting areas where I think we will also see an impact, if there is kinetic or continued kinetic warfare between these two countries or in the Middle East generally, is in cybersecurity. You know, Israel's cyber industry, Israel's technology industry is one of the most robust in the world. And if everyone sort of focused on a conflict and managing cyber infrastructure, you actually might see an impact in the global cyber industry growth.
So, Brandon, briefly here at the end, let me go back to what Katie was talking about, that Israeli-linked ship that was seized in the Strait of Hormuz. Has that had a specific effect? And particularly, for example, I think about insurance rates.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of infrastructure that is already moved to routing around that specific region. And what the Houthis were doing has already been priced into insurance. But if there is a larger scale conflict, I think insurance rates, I think insurance premiums, and I think even the idea of supply chain risk underwriting starts to get a big boost. It starts to become a focus, just like you saw cyber insurance start to spike over the last 5 years. I know for us, our cyber insurance has increased, and I think most Fortune 500 companies, their cyber insurance has increased significantly. I think what has happened in Baltimore, what has happened in Panama, what has happened in, the Houthi situation, and now what's happening in this geopolitical tension, I think insurance providers are starting to wake up, boards are starting to wake up, and supply chain management becomes the frontier for risk management globally.
Yeah, those geopolitical tensions, maybe they're permanent risk factors going forward. Brandon, really appreciate your time. That is Brandon Daniels. He is the CEO of Exiger. And David, who